All right, we're still working with those imaginary numbers because this is a scenario where imaginary numbers really come into play when we have negatives underneath of a radical. So let's go back and refresh our memory. Remember that we said that we were going to let I squared be equal to -1. Well, an equal sign goes both ways. So I squared is equal to -1, and -1 is equal to I squared. So I can actually say, if I have a -1, I can let it be I squared. Well, how would that come into play for us here? Let's take a look and see. So I have -5 plus the square root of -25 quantity squared. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mess around with this square root of -25. So square root of -25 can be thought of as the square root of -1 times 25, excuse me. We can replace the -1 with I squared. Now, you might say, well, why would I want to replace the -1 with I squared? Because, well, I'm underneath a radical, and a square root, it needs to be a square value to be able to take the square root. So let's just review that real quickly. So remember, like, for example, if I have 7 squared, I get 49. If I take the square root of 49, I get 7. The reason that happens is because we have a square root of a squared number. So like inverse operations, the square and the square root cancel each other, and we end up walking away with 7. So same thing with an I. We have to get comfortable that we can use variables to represent things also, and that's like a whole new barrier. So essentially what's happening here is this, is that we have the square root of I squared. Well, if you want, a couple ways of thinking about it is like the fact that you have a square and you have a square root, and those guys are inverse operations. So I'm just left with I. That's what comes out of there. All right. Maybe if you need to do it one more time, think about it like this. If I had the square root of 64, 64 is equal to 8 squared. So I works just like 8. So when I take the square root of 8 squared again, remember the square root and the square cancel, and I come out of there with an 8. So when I bring this back over here, bring it back to our problem, what happens is that at this point, we take the square root. We actually can, just to be fully mathematically correct, we break these apart. This becomes the square root of I squared times the square root of 25. The square root of I squared is I. The square root of 25 is 5. And my final answer in grammatically correct format, we always put the variable behind, will be 5i. So we come back up here, and what we really have is we have -5 plus 5i quantity squared. All right, and remember, what they're looking for us to do right now is to put this into the format a plus bi. Well, to do that, I've got to go through and actually use the distributive property. I've got to actually do what this problem is actually asking me to do, and that is to multiply -5 plus 5i and square it. All right, we apply the distributive property. So we distribute, or FOIL, we should say. A negative times a negative is a positive. A negative times a positive is a negative. Then we take the positive times the negative, so I get -25i. And we take the negative times the positive, and we get -25i squared. So at this point, hopefully what you're starting to see is you have these values that, these situations like I squareds, where you're going to kind of do things with those. So we come back and we clean this up to finish off. The 25 right now doesn't have anybody to put with it, so we just bring down the 25. The -25i and the -25i, those are like terms. So we can put them together and get -50i. And then remember that I squared, right, becomes -1. So this just becomes, as a little side note right here, this becomes -25 times -1, and this comes out to be 25. So we say plus 25. To finish it off, we combine like terms. We have a 25 here and a 25 there, so we get 50, take away 50i, and that should be our solution. So we come back to our answer blank. We've got it in the right format, right, because we're using the a plus bi format. So we got 50 minus 50i. So we got the a plus bi format. Check. Oh, so check it out. So I'm going to press clear real quickly. And let's see. Actually, let's see if I can move this. Yes, I can. Let's see what it says. So it says, for any positive real number, b, negative b, I square root of b, begin by the fact expression the square root is the given expression of I. Then use FOIL method to multiply. Replace any occurrence of I squared with negative 1 to simplify your result. So I'm going to hit pause and see if I can find my mistake, because I felt pretty good about my writing, but we'll see. I'll be right back. I found it. I don't know what I was doing. Let's see. Let's choose yellow. All right. So right here, I took a positive times a positive, and I put it down as a negative. Don't ask me why. So that should have been a positive sign right there. So when I came over here, this would be a positive sign. So I have a positive times a negative, which would give me a negative. That would make this into a negative. That means that this 25 and that 25 would cancel. So there would be nothing out in front. So my final answer should have just been negative 50i. So let's see if I got that right. Let's get rid of the 50 and check. Awesome. Nice. So there we go. This is section 1.4, question number 9. And hope this helps you guys get through this particular problem. Reach out if you have any more questions.